Florida is getting pretty fascist these days, but honestly, who's surprised? If you don't know what fascist means, you really should know, so hang in here, I'll get to it. Florida's anti-LGBT Don't Say Gay bill has passed, and it's come out that Disney has donated to the campaigns of every single sponsor and co-sponsor of the hateful bill. Before I get into what that means and what you can do about this, I want to preface this video by saying that this is not some abstract moral debate between conservatives and liberals for me. I have friends and acquaintances who've had their teeth knocked out from walking to their car or walking home while being gay at night. I personally witnessed a gay man have his legs broken with like a pipe in a Target parking lot while there was a police officer like standing right there in front of the store. They didn't do anything about it, of course, because police don't prevent crime. And one of my closest friends in New York City has all of his teeth knocked out. He has an appointment to get his teeth re-screwed into the top of his mouth from being attacked by a homophobic hate crime. So this language has real tangible effects that could happen to me, it could happen to someone you know, it could happen to you. We've all seen Disney push for LGBT representation in their movies when it's financially convenient and it's going to potentially draw audiences in, like their first openly gay couple in the new Marvel movie, or this openly gay Cyclops unicorn who's also a cop. It's obviously all about money for Disney, whether it's finally including some LGBT characters in their movies to try and draw in some liberal audiences, or if it's about buying elections for anti-LGBT fascists in Florida's government. Disney is, after all, one of the larger employers in the state with over 60,000 employees. They probably want some tax incentives. They probably don't want minimum wage to go up. They don't want to be having to pay benefits for their employees and keep them in poverty. And with all their resorts and the theme parks and stuff in Florida, they're probably really invested in the real estate and want to make sure they have a hand in the local governments. Now I'm going to talk about what you can actually do. We know that voting with your votes doesn't really work so well when giant corporations are dumping thousands and thousands of dollars into elections to get any old person who's going to do their bidding elected, whether they love or hate LGBT people. So you can try to vote with your dollar. This is going to be hard to do since it's hard to boycott something that is approaching a monopoly like Disney, where they own Hulu, ESPN, ABC News, 20th Century Fox, FX, National Geographic, the History Channel, Marvel, like the list goes on. Don't Google this graphic. Like, why do they own GoPro? But you can do what I do and save a little bit of money by downloading a VPN and pirating everything. I can't believe that people pay for Hulu subscriptions to watch commercials on Hulu content. Like, you can just Google 1, 2, 3 movies in whatever TV show or movie you want to watch and stream it. You might have to click X on like 20 pop-ups, but this is an app I use that blocks the pop-ups and lets you cast it to any streaming device like Apple TV or Fire Stick or Google Chromecast. But yeah, no one's gonna successfully boycott any of these giant corporations. Voting with your dollar is a capitalist illusion. These corporations are funded with unbelievable amounts of finance capital that will propel them well into the future. They are giant conglomerates that no one is going to take down by canceling their Hulu subscription, and they probably are generating a ton of revenue internationally at this point anyway, and don't really care about what's going on in our little culture wars. Yeah, reject this manufactured consent of the option of voting with your votes in rigged elections or voting with your dollars in a rigged economy. This is capitalist propaganda. Now I want to explain why I keep calling these far-right conservatives in Florida's government fascists. We need to reject this idea that conservatism is this naturally occurring counterbalance to socially liberal ideologies, and we need to start viewing it for what it is. It's anti-science, and it's some kind of like demented form of religiosity with this evangelical movement especially. A lot of the anti-LGBT stuff is coming from a place of bastardized Christian religion. Now, when you look at other forms of like bastardized religions and pseudosciences, anti-science movements abroad, it's so easy to identify it as like, oh wow, that's messed up, abuse of power. And then you can call it fascism with this like cult following that it will garner. A really good example of this that I just can't unsee is looking at an organization like the Taliban. They have bastardized Islam and are using it to push this nationalistic, conservative, socially conservative agenda that is allowing for consolidation of power politically and economically, because they have all of their following so riled up in a culture war, a religious, fervor around it, that they are able to get away with such incredible abuses of power economically and politically. In my head, all of these far-right, religious, conservative, nationalistic movements in the Middle East like the Taliban and ISIS are very ideologically similar to the far-right evangelical movement in the United States. They will deny science, like the scientific fact that women are independent and capable and can participate in society as fully as a man can, and push this like religious idea that they cannot do those things, or that LGBT people are sinners and need to be like exterminated or killed or just denied their existence. And we're seeing it for ourselves as neoliberal capitalism is so warmly inviting fascism into our society and into our national discourse when it is financially convenient. And finally, I do want to talk about what kind of future we should be fighting to build beyond capitalism, where we can overcome this ugly fascism. Because I'm not just a hater, I'm a doer. I'm a revolutionary. So the way that all of our favorite movies and TV shows are produced currently is undemocratic. It's basically up to the whims of rich people with a lot of capital to invest in their productions. Obviously, our current capitalist system is not very good for innovation. We're seeing sequel after sequel unnecessarily being made because they don't need to repeat the same investment in marketing. So these brand names are already recognizable. I mean, what is this? Hotel Transylvania 4, Transformania? I hope I don't have to say any of these words ever again. This is obviously really a stupid system. We have the internet now. We have amazing feats being accomplished through crowdfunding. There are models potentially for worker-owned production studios. There's currently a production company that's calling itself the first fan-owned entertainment company called Legion M. They have a ton of everyday people as their investors who get to vote on decisions being made about what they are going to produce. They came out with a movie with Anne Hathaway that was like a dark comedy sci-fi thing that had just a lot of character. Hopefully in the future, we can have grants being awarded to people from disenfranchised communities to help be telling their stories and their perspectives, because this for-profit model is really frustrating everyone. We're tired of these same old, mostly rich white men standing there with their hand on the lever about to drop these young, innovative creators into the dungeon if they don't like their pilot. Why do they get to decide what gets to be produced? Just because our system said you're rich and you're powerful and your opinion's more important? Also, copyright and intellectual property are totally made up. There's no reason why poor people shouldn't have access to streaming services to watch whatever movies and TV shows they want. I said it. Our current capitalist model where we are commodifying media does not make any sense. We have the internet and the ability to transmit any movie and TV show into any household or any handheld device and share so much education and culture and media and entertainment with the world and bring us all closer together. But we have profit models that are created on restricting access to this media that we love. So yeah, in an ideal socialist state with a dictatorship of the proletariat, we could be choosing to award grants to organizations that are creating the kind of media that we actually want to see, the kind of media that is improving humanity. So grants for things that are pro-science to combat fascist pseudoscience. We could have, beloved cultural icons like Cardi B come and explain virology, bring Bill Nye the Science Guy back. We could have grants for things that are telling the stories of immigrant communities to combat xenophobia. We could have grants being made to tell the stories of racial minorities, to tell history in its actuality, right? Like to undo a lot of the brainwashing that has happened um, through our capitalist neoliberal society's public education that has like whitewashed a lot of our history. We can seize control of our social media instead of leaving these algorithms up to tech oligarchs who have their own interest, as we've seen with their influence on elections and the media that gets promoted in their algorithms. We can say, hey, you get to post some media, some stuff for your friends, post some selfies, some of this, but we're also going to push some pro-science documentaries in there. We're going to make some amazing content that's going to help uplift and educate the masses and empower people. And we can have plenty of entertainment. We can have investment in the arts and innovation instead of the same old, profit-driven sequels and superhero movies, recognizable brand names. Just they push whatever they think will make a profit. That's bullshit. We should just push whatever we want to make.